Hey everybody, it's Phil Cerzullo from Select Software Reviews, and I'm here with Sean from Recruit CRM, or I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
Recruit PRM.
No,
Um,
it's CRM. It is CRM.
I'm sorry,
It is
Recruit
CRM.
CRM.
It
Um,
is CRM.
Sean, do you mind giving a little background on yourself and kind of how you got into this world of HR technology and what you guys do?
Yeah. Yeah, and like a lot of what we do has like deep links to my personal story from when I was a kid. And I'll tell you why, right? So there's a bunch of awards behind me, which Phil talked about. They're my dad's. My dad is my co-founder at Recruit CRM, and those are from his time in the army, in the Indian Army, in the anti-terror squad. Uh, Post which, Dad quit and got his MBA. And post his MBA, I was about 5 years old, and he started working for a staffing company called Randstad. Uh, about 4 or 5 years into that stint, he was the country manager for Randstad's business in India. So from the time I was 5 years old till I was about 16, Dad grew Randstad's business in India from 80, 90 people to about 2,400 consultants. They're the market leader in India. Randstad paid him well for doing that. And he used a part of that money to pay for my overpriced American college education. So I was shipped off to college post high school in Bloomington, Indiana, uh, in IU Bloomington, which is like it's a Big Ten state school. Graduated in 2.5 years, and moved to the Bay Area to basically run a startup that I'd started and raised some angel money for with a couple friends in college. A year into it, the startup wasn't doing very well, but I kept talking to my dad about business and the things we wanted to do together. And one of the things he always wanted to do was start a technology company for staffing and recruiting professionals, because he didn't really like the tech and tools they had while they were at Randstad, because they'd built their own, at least for the India division back then. And so he wasn't a technologist. I'd studied technology and information systems in college. And Dad knew the staffing industry super well. So we got together and we started Recruit CRM. So I flew back from Mountain View, California to India to get that business started. We're incorporated in the US, but we have our back office in India. And fast forward 5 years now, we're a team of 130 people. We serve over 1,200 customers across, with users in 100 plus countries and clients in 86 countries. And that's who we are. We serve some of the best recruitment firms in the world. Hayes uses us to recruit for their recruitment process outsourcing business in Europe. One of the Volkswagen Group's subsidiaries uses us to hire self-driving car engineers and battery engineers at Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, Bentley, Bugatti, supercars, and a bunch of their other brands. And in closer to home in the US, Berkshire Hathaway uses us at a few of their portfolio companies, like Lubrizol chemicals and transportation. And then we also work with a lot of traditional staffing firms who represent 95% of our customer base. So that's what we're doing. We've bootstrapped a multi-million-dollar software business with no outside capital, zero. And I and Dad combined own like 96% of our company, which is pretty rare in tech companies at this scale.
Yeah, that's really an unbelievable story, and thanks
Yeah.
for sharing it. When you look across the other vendors in this space, and I guess your dad sort of had this like very unique lens to attack this problem. What are some of the ways that you guys are differentiating yourselves? What were some of the key insights around how these firms weren't kind of behaving in the way that they should, I guess?
Of course. And so a lot of what we saw with, and you see with enterprise software, right, is, and this is at a very basic level. Folks see consumer products that they use in their day-to-day lives as these products with beautiful design and perfect user interfaces. And over time, you were seeing sort of the consumerization of the enterprise, but that was still happening at those super horizontal products like Slack or Zoom, which like millions of people use, right? It was very rare for a vertical specific product like an HRMS or a recruitment CRM to have new age design and a new age workflow. Most of them still look like Windows 95. So I think that was the first insight, right? Just make something that people don't puke at when they like look at it, right? And they have to look at it for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours at work every day. So the first insight was just make it a lot simpler and quicker to use. And the second thing was customer support was really bad, right? So the little user research we did was one was from anecdotal evidence from basically my dad and his experience with recruitment vendors, plus because he was at Randstad for so long, a lot of his colleagues across the Netherlands, the US, and even India had quit their jobs as business heads and practice heads to start their own recruitment companies and search firms, and they were all using different tools. And none of them was in love with their tool the same way someone's in love with Zoom or Slack or, the other tools we use. And so we said, hey, there's sort of an opportunity. So we just have to build something with better design and have very, very good customer service. So if you go on Capterra or just go online and look at our reviews, we have a perfect 5 for customer service with like 300 reviews. And we've been able to do that because I have an army of people that ensures that our average response time is under 40 seconds. So if 24 hours of the day, someone reaches out to us Monday through Friday, working hours in any country in the world, from Japan to like California, and you shoot us a message, our median response time is 42 seconds. And sometimes like the moment someone like says, I need help, and a person pops in and says, okay, do you want to get on a Zoom call right now? And I'll take over your screen and walk you through it. That's magical. Because we were able to do that, we had very tight feedback loops, right? So we were continuously getting feedback every day on what works, what doesn't work. And the engineering and product team was, so our product team doesn't decide what to build. The product team just decides the order in which customer feedback is implemented into the product, which is very different from a more strategic product management team. And as we have a large number of customers across a large number of countries, their job is to basically prioritize based on the number of requests from the number of different regions and countries and types of firms.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
The customer service thing really resonates. I remember there was a business maybe 15 years ago. It was one of the first SaaS companies that I'd come across in the revenue cycle management space in healthcare. And they had this rule where after the third phone call ring, every single office phone would ring, including the CEO. It's because they were that maniacal about customer success. And it sounds like you guys have a similar ethos, which is a great way to serve your customer base.
We have 20 people in customer success, which will be 26, which is crazy for a company our scale because we're sub 10 million ARR. And so that's like crazy revenue to person ratio.
Yeah, it is. That's great though.
Yeah.
What are some of the main ways that a solution like this can benefit a staffing company? Like,
yeah. It's a few things, right? So let me start because we have firms that are a couple of people and then we have firms that are like 200 people, right? And so it's very different for what's useful to a 2-person or a 4-person company that wants to spend $400 or $500 a month versus someone that's trying to spend 300 grand a year, right? At the starting sort of layer, right? The challenge is most people start a recruiting company with a friend with a shared Google Sheet, a LinkedIn license, and they pick up a phone and they start doing recruitment, right? Like a little brokerage thing. But if you want to scale that from 1 or 2 people to 5, 6, 7, 8 people, you need a platform where you're able to stand on each other's shoulders in a sense. So if one consultant is talking to a specific candidate, you want to know that 18 months later without having to ask them about it or have a conversation about it when you go into your system or CRM. So that's why you need a system, right? Now, the problem is that's why a lot of systems exist, but most systems are a complete pain to use because you have to do a lot of data entry to enter this data, and no one wants to do data entry. So a good system today, like ours or like a few others, right? I wouldn't say we're the only good system. We like to think we're the best, but there's a bunch of other good systems that would drive productivity. A good system is a system where you don't need to do data entry for your system to enrich itself. So we spend a lot of time and engineering effort to figure out how do we automate, right? So we have an Office 365 and G Suite integration. So if you start using Recruit CRM today and connect your G Suite email, we bring in the last 10 years worth of your email history in the folder order that you have it in G Suite or Office 365. And then if you import any candidate into the database or add a new candidate in the future, it checks the inboxes of all of your colleagues and tells you if you've emailed, if any one of them has traded emails with them, and you can read those emails. And there's obviously security layers on it. But basically, you could start using Recruit CRM today. And if you're a 5-person team or a 50-person team, you could see emails other people on your team have maybe sent a candidate 2 years ago or a client 2 years ago. So that's like one piece of context. Another is if you're on LinkedIn or Zing, which is like Germany's LinkedIn, or Indeed or ZoomInfo, and you look at data that you want, right? A candidate or a potential client. We've built tools to be able to extract that data without having to copy and paste it into a spreadsheet or copy and paste it into your database with a click. If you take a resume and pop it into Recruit CRM, we're able to fill close to 50 fields of information because we've licensed out like one of the best AI parsers in the world and baked it into the platform. So you never have to type stuff, right? Try to minimize typing. So all people are doing is literally either dragging and dropping or uploading, and you're just seeing enriched profiles. And then we've built ways to bring your client into the platform. So while you pay for Recruit CRM licenses, we've created like a free vendor management system for your clients, or if they don't want to use a vendor management system, individual links per job or per search, where you can just send them a link, they can click on it, and they can see a live Kanban board of all the candidates you're presenting to them across stages, where they can just drag and drop and give you feedback and you get notified. So instead of you writing them an email and saying, hey, here's 5 people that you should look at, you send them a link, which you can track because you can see when they're looking at it. And when they can react to it. They don't have to type in a new email and compose a message. They just click and just drag drop and say yes, and you get notified, and then you can react, and we give notifications to other people on your team. So these are just smaller things, but there's like tons and tons of automation, reporting. So because in larger firms, when you talk about a 200-person firm, the biggest problem is CRM compliance. That's an actual word, right? And that basically means the management team has bought this system because they want great dashboards and reports, but the dashboards and reports suck because no one's using the system. And every week or every month, there's an email that goes out, guys, please update your CRM. And what that basically tells you is the management needs reports. So you need to spend 5, 6, 7, 8% of your productive time filling the system up that you're not filling up yourself anyway because you don't think it's useful. Otherwise you would, right? Otherwise you wouldn't need to be told to do it. And so how do you eliminate?
Do you guys track that as a metric around like what, how compliant are your customers?
Oh, yeah. And we give them data on it too, right? Like how many people on your team have logged in today and used the system, and how many actions have they performed? And like there's like 60 KPIs to track them on. And so if someone's producing more revenue, you can actually be like, hey, this person presented 8 candidates with a 30% hit rate because he has on an average 40, or she has on an average 40 follow-up tasks every day that they complete, versus this other person doesn't, and they're producing less revenue, or maybe some KPIs don't make a difference, and then maybe do less of those.
It's cool to hear you talk about the specific features, because it's clear like the sort of product mastermind behind this was somebody that lived and breathed it, right? And like understands like all these teeny tiny ways of adding value and what the hiccups are going to be, what the friction points are. If you were to talk to somebody, let's say you met somebody randomly at a conference and they were running a, I don't know, 10 or 30 person firm, and they're like, we're kind of looking at, CRMs, and like, what advice would you have for them around how to run that vendor selection process?
Yeah. So the first thing I would ask them to do is I'd ask them to first ask themselves and their team why they're even looking for a new system, right? And that'll help them figure out the deficiencies in their existing system and then where they want to go, right? So that could be too much data entry, no integration with Outlook or Gmail or your website or client CRM or whatever, right? What they first need to do is, instead of looking for a certain system, first figure out what they want. It's like when you're looking for a relationship, you first need to ask yourself, what do you want from the relationship? So first make a list of 5 or 6 things, right? The second is go online, go to the Capterras of the world, go to the G2s of the world, find 3, 4, 5 vendors that are rated reasonably well. Because I do believe you should look at multiple. I won't suddenly tell you, go buy Recruit CRM, right? You should buy us after you try us, right? And then what you do is you demo all of them. And then this next step is very unique, right? You don't need to do 10 demos with a product to buy it. Do 1 or 2 demos, and then make sure that the product you're getting or you're trying first gives you a free trial. Some products don't do that. Second, after the free trial, which is generally limited, is over, they are okay doing a pilot with you for like 1 quarter. Most vendors like freak out when you do this, right? If you're like, hey, can I just pay for, I have 30 people, but I don't want to pay $40,000 upfront. Can I have 5 of my people pay $100 each, $500 a month for the first 3 months and test it out, and you help me configure it? And in our and again, sales pitch on our end, we take that risk. We go into you and we say, hey, we'll make this work for you. And then when it works in 2 or 3 or 4 months, that's when you can buy the rest of the seats. And even then buy monthly seats. And if you want to switch to annual, switch. And if you stay on monthly, you can cancel whenever you feel like it. If you feel like we're not adding more value 6, 7, 8 months in, then you're paying us every month. Hit a button, canceled, over. Because at the end of the day, right, like that's going to happen at some point. If you're completely focused on just closing the sale and not making sure your clients succeed, especially in a SaaS relationship, which is supposed to be recurring in long term, the only difference is you're going to lock in revenue for year 1, but they're going to churn in year 2 or year 3, in month 12 or month 24. So instead of having to deal with all of that, deal with it in the first 3 months. Ensure that in the first 3 months, if it works and they're onboarded, they're just thrilled and happy and it works. And so it's not even a question of whether they're going to be retained or not. They're just going to stay with you for the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah.
And that just makes everything way smoother versus someone's put in 30 grand and 6 months in or 8 months in, they're like, this just doesn't work and we've just wasted money. And then you try to find the person who picked that system and scream at them for like wasting company resources, time and money. We want the person who's championing our product to seem like a superstar, right? Versus like a stupid person that got scammed by a software vendor that's selling a shitty product.
Do you have any opinions about like, what are the companies that are really successful with this sort of solution post implementation versus those that don't get as much value out of it?
Yeah. So where we see, because we've obviously, when you have 1,200 active customers, you've obviously we've seen everything, right? We've seen people that are in love with us from day one. We've seen people who weren't in love with us, who fell in love with us. And we also have people who never loved us, right? Like they maybe bought it, some of their team members didn't like it, and it didn't work out for them, right? And this is a fact. If any software vendor tells you otherwise, they're lying to you, right? And I'll tell you when it works. It works when someone from the leadership team, ideally multiple people from the leadership team, have buy-in and are at least involved in the implementation process. For us, the implementation process, depending on how large your team is anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks, right? If you're a 5-person team, it's like 2 weeks, 2 or 3 calls. If you're a 110-person team, it's like a 12-week process, 12 to 15 calls, plus homework worth like 20 hours for your team. Not your entire 100-person team, but like for the implementation squad, like the 4 or 5 people that are implementing. And where we see the biggest challenges are where the boss attends like one demo for 15 minutes and they say, hey, you know what? You don't need to show this to me anymore. It's cool. Let's buy it. And then this intern's going to implement it now and get it to us next month. And our customer success manager is working with an intern that just started there like a month ago, and they don't even know like the difference between a retained executive search, contract staffing. Like it's not their fault, right? They're 19 years old. They're not supposed to implement the product because the business owner is like, you know what? All my consultants are busy. I'm busy, but we need a tool because like, you know, everyone has a tool. And so this person's going to implement it. So don't get your most junior person to implement it. Get your most tech savvy consultants and recruiters who are excited about it, and at least one of the business owners or leaders. If you're a sub 50-person firm, one of the business owners or at least C-suite executives needs to be involved in the implementation. If you're a 500-person team, recruiting or staffing team, it's a little different. Then you could have one VP involved. But if you're a sub 50-person team, you're doing less than like 20 million in revenue, the business owner can spend an hour a week for 8 weeks to make sure the CRM they're going to scale their business on for the next 10 years works, right? Yeah. And that's what we've started pushing for more and more, leadership or founder or business owner buy-in, not just from a signature perspective, but actually being on the first 2 or 3 calls and deciding what the system needs to look like, what roles and permissions need to look like, what are the different ways you structure your teams and reporting and stuff like that.
Yeah. And to your point, like it's such an essential part of those businesses that they should be able to carve the time out.
Yeah, or 6 months in, they can be like, hey, I wanted it this way. I'm like, dude, you like
Yeah.
6 months ago, you needed to be on that for, because now we can still do it, but now you're like deleting a bunch of the information that your team is like set up and implemented over the last 6 months, and you're trying to like redo the workflow, which basically means we wasted the last 6 months, and you wasted 6 months worth of subscription fees that you paid us, because
Right.
you're paying us anyway.
Yeah.
So let's do it the right way.
Yeah. Sean, where can people find you or find out about your business?
Yeah, so we sign up anywhere between 50 to 80 customers in any month, depending on which month it is. Most of the people that buy our product, about 40%, either find us through a referral, which means another company that uses us told us about them, or someone that works at a Recruit CRM customer quits and either joins a new firm and brings us in, or they start their own recruitment agency with like 3 or 4 people and they buy Recruit CRM. Very common. We've had a situation in South Africa where our first customer in South Africa, or second customer in South Africa, 15-person team, which is now a 20-person team, over the last 3 years has resulted in 15 new clients, which is like 7 or 8 times the revenue of the original customer, because they've just moved to different places and bought us. And that's like a more extreme example, but we've had many situations where one company seeded 2 or 3 or 4 clients. So that's just a referral. Our website is recruitcrm.io, recruitcrm.io, which is where you can find us and do a free trial. And then also a lot of people find us on places like Capterra, G2, Software Advice, LinkedIn, and we also do a little Google and search engine ads, but we've started reducing that as we invest more and more into content and creating podcasts and videos for recruitment business owners.
Awesome. Well, Sean, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for joining us.
100%. It was awesome talking to you.